Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the event. So I have had quite a long speech, but I understood it's impossible to do a long speech after the break for the dinner. So I will be very short, and I just would like to speak about my personal impression of today. And my personal impression of today was that we have been discussing this morning a lot of important geopolitical, economic, digital, business, defense issues. A lot of the problems and the issues which are valid and important for the Western world. And suddenly I realized that we are lucky. We Poles are very lucky to be part of this Western world. And we are lucky to have the issue with the TTIP and with the cybersecurity of our banking accounts being quite wealthy. And we have issues about selecting this missile or that missile, this helicopter or that helicopter. And that's why I would like to thank Fred and the Atlantic Council for bringing the Freedom Awards to Wrocław, for bringing them to Poland. Because you remind us with all those beautiful testimonies that the missiles, the digital, the helicopters, the geopolitical wars are important. But there are some fundamental values to which, within those only 25 years, we got dramatically used. And maybe we don't evaluate them enough. So I would like, on behalf of Poland, if I may, at least of myself, my family, my wife being here, to thank you for bringing those fundamentals to us every year here in Wrocław, because it's important that we get back to the fundamentals on top of the other important issues. And to finish, I will use my Google, thank you for the partnership, to quote Ronald Reagan, who said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be thought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same." So thank you to the Atlantic Council, and thank you to all the awardees for reminding us which are the fundamental values, and to remind us that we have to keep, whatever wealthy we are, whatever happy we are, we have to keep to fight and to strive for freedom. Thank you very much, and I leave the floor to Rafał Dudkiewicz. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marcin Zaborowski, Director of the Polish Institute of International Affairs.
Now, Mayor Dudkiewicz, he is still out there, but I would like to begin actually from saying thank you to Mayor Dudkiewicz and to the city of Wrocław. That event would have never been possible. This kind of discussion, really high quality transatlantic discussion, would have never been possible without the visionary work of Mayor Dudkiewicz and his excellent team. So, sir, and naturally, let me thank the Atlantic Council and Fred Kempe for bringing the awards here. This is really generous of you to have that kind of awardee and awards celebration here in Wrocław. So thank you, Fred, and thank you, the Atlantic Council. I also would like to thank my colleagues at the Polish Institute for International Affairs. My colleagues at the Polish Institute for International Affairs pull out this conference together, sometimes from behind the scene, and sometimes they do a great work that you can't really see here. But the fact that we can meet, we have a roof over our heads, we have our beds, we have our food. Part of that is thanks to my colleagues. I would like you to recognize here those who are in the room with us. Anna Zielińska-Rakowicz, Deputy Director, Magda Jakubowska, our organizer-in-chief, Joanna Kędzierska, who is our communication director, and Olgier Syczewski, who is our fixer-in-chief. We also have with us Sebastian Płóciennik, director of our European program, who is from Wroclaw, and so he feels very much in his elements. But ladies and gentlemen, let me say a few words about the people who have been awarded Freedom Awards in the past. Well, as Fred has already mentioned, we have a privilege to have some of them among us. And let me remind you who they are. Radosław Sikorski, our former Minister for Foreign Affairs, and the Marshal of the Parliament. Aleś Bielecki, who received the Freedom Award in 2011. Katarina Kruk, who was a volunteer at the Wrocław event for 3 years, but last year she was awardee she collected the award of the Freedom Award on the behalf of the people of Maidan. And I would like to also thank the European Humanities University, which is represented here by the Vice Rector. I have looked into the list of all the former awardees. There are about like 30 of them. I can't really name all of them right now, but this is becoming a bit of a club of a generous and good people. Let's hope that we will continue in this spirit. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sławomir Sierakowski, leader of Krytyka Polityczna.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and comrades. I am pleased and honored to introduce my very good friend and the leading world-known filmmaker, Agnieszka Holland. She, alongside with Andrzej Wajda and Krzysztof Kieślowski, whom you all know, Agnieszka Holland, had been one of the leaders of so-called cinema of moral anxiety in 70s. My favorite movie, and if anyone hasn't seen this one yet, I really suggest you to see, is Woman Alone, with the very universal meaning, differently than many of the movies from the cinema of moral anxiety. She then went abroad and made great movies like Europe or Angry Harvest, for which she has been several times nominated for an Oscar. She even once, 2 years ago, has been nominated by, which never happens, by National Academy, not of Poland, but of Czech Republic, for Burning Bush, the movie that Czechs needed Polish romantic to describe the story of Jan Palach, the student who committed suicide in 1968 during the Prague Spring, as you all know. It seems to me that Agnieszka particularly deserves this award, or this award deserves to go into Agnieszka's hands, because you don't have too many filmmakers that are so successful on both sides of Atlantic Ocean. And Agnieszka in 70s did a big success in Poland, then in continental cinema, very different than American Hollywood cinema. And then finally, she's very, very successful director in America. European fanatics of House of Cards, and I know that most of you know what I'm talking about. For me personally, Agnieszka is important because in one of the movies which belongs to the Holocaust cinema, she decided to take as the main character someone who doesn't belong to intelligentsia or higher class. I'm talking about In Darkness, very successful movie, which was like a revolution in consciousness in Poland 2 years ago. She decided to talk about the very similar to as we are here in Poland now today, not only before, just regular men, or like Jacek Kuroń would say, the men of everyday life, and describe the story of Holocaust, which was more often the story of regular people, not only the story of people like Spielmann or Schindler. So she actually is a director who is dealing with the very, very significant and very hard moral issues, but she does it without moralizing. One of the leading Polish intellectuals, Maria Janion, used to say that Agnieszka is one of the not too many artists that it's, in Polish artists, that it's not sentimentalist, which I think is a very, very good description of what Agnieszka does. Agnieszka is a real artist, which for me means that she doesn't only deal with the art, but takes a certain responsibility for this world. And I understand that this is a significant reason why this award goes to her. Exactly. She plays a role of, let me put it this way, one member's party in Poland. And whenever she says something, even Prime Minister must react. And Radek Sikorski will confirm my words. I'm referring to the situation when she was blaming Donald Tusk, and Donald Tusk next day organized conference and said, "I'm sorry." So ladies and gentlemen, Freedom Awards will go this year to Agnieszka Holland.
Thank you, Sławek. Thank you for this award. The freedom has special meaning for me. I was born and raised in communist Poland and spent a big part of my life there. Then during 10 years I was political immigrant in so-called free world, in France, in US. And then I didn't expect it when I was living in communist Poland. I've seen my country becoming free, democratic, and independent. And this period when I was living and observing democratic Poland was very instructive for myself and very instructive of my understanding of freedom. I understood that I'm coming from the nation which is very good in fighting for freedom, but which is less good in living the freedom. And then I was looking around and I was realizing that on this planet, probably the most of the people have the problem with living the freedom. And when having this opportunity, they are wandering over the earth looking for the cage. Then I understood that the notion and meaning of freedom is not the same for everybody, and that it will be naive and pretentious to believe so. And I love Americans, but I think that that is the mistake they are doing too often, to believe that the freedom means the same for everybody and every place. But for me personally, the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, as for a citizen, person, and artist, is more important than the wealth, the recognition of the success. And the freedom of being myself is more important than my physical freedom even. And these values I'm sharing with some people, and some of them are in this room. And in the first place, I would like to share this award with my colleague, filmmaker, Ukrainian filmmaker, Oleg Sentsov. Oleg is documentary young filmmaker, very talented one. He was active during Maidan in Kiev. Then he came back after Maidan to his native Crimea. and was protesting against Russian annexion of his land. Then he was kidnapped in his home, transferred to the Moscow prison in Lefortovo, tortured, and falsely accused of the terrorist acts. He spent in this prison over the year without the trial, denying all the accusations. And for myself and for my European colleagues, European filmmakers, for European Film Academy I am leading, his example, his courage and determination reminds us what the most basic meaning of freedom is. So today is many Ukrainian people who've been on this stage. I would like to remind you also this one, because I'm a filmmaker and he's a filmmaker. We are the brother and sister. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Garry Kasparov, Chairman of the Human Rights Foundation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you here today. And after all the horror stories we heard at the ceremony about Russian atrocities in Ukraine, I'm happy to be able to tell you and to show you that Putin and his gang are not the only Russia. There is another Russia, a Russia that wants to be free, to be democratic, and be part of the civilized world. And I believe that this is the future of my country. On February 27 this year, a great champion of democracy was murdered in front of the Kremlin. The symbolism of the time and place of his assassination would not have been lost on my friend Boris Nemtsov, who understood as well as anyone the hateful and violent forces that have been unleashed in Vladimir Putin's Russia in recent years. Nor was Boris surprised that this hatred and violence had again spilled over the Russian border. He was working on an in-depth report on Russian soldiers in Ukraine at the time of his murder. In a way, Boris was a Russian soldier too, a patriotic hero who believed passionately in all of the things Putin has worked so hard to destroy. Boris was fighting a war to save democracy in Russia. Every war has its front lines, where only the bravest of the brave volunteer to fight. Boris was one of those rare knights of freedom who, knowing full well the dangers and the odds against him, battled every day as if he were invincible. By so doing, he inspired many more to believe in this fight and to have courage, the courage to join him. The tens of thousands of martyrs who filled the streets of Moscow to honor him, and the flowers that the police still rushed to sweep away from the bridge where he was killed, are testimony to the power and the truth of Boris' leadership and vision. A successful mayor in Nizhny Novgorod, a capable cabinet member, a parliamentarian, Boris Nemtsov could have led a comfortable life in the power vertical as a token liberal voice. But Boris was unqualified to work for the Putin's regime because he had principles and could not bear to watch our country descend back into the totalitarian depths. And so Boris launched his big body, big voice, and big heart into the uphill battle to keep democracy alive in Russia. He was devoted to documenting the crimes and corruption of Putin and his cronies, hoping they would one day face a justice that seemed further away all the time. He tackled the tyrant's greatest crimes directly and was never content to nibble at the edges. Boris and I began to argue after Putin returned as president in 2012. To me, It signaled the end of any realistic hopes that there could be a peaceful political solution to regime change in Russia. But Boris was always optimistic. He would tell me that I was too hasty. And he would say, Gary, you have to live a long time to see a change in Russia. Boris will never see that change. But if we are to honor his memory and his ultimate sacrifice, we must fight as hard as he did to make sure that change does come. As you have already heard today, Ronald Reagan had said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. I guess Reagan did not mean it so literally, but it is also true that freedom can become extinct when a generation of freedom fighters like Boris Nemtsov are killed, jailed, and exiled. How can our fight find new blood when so much old blood is being openly spilled? Reagan said freedom is not inherited. It must always be fought for. With us here today, we have one bright exception. Boris' eldest daughter, Zhana, who has clearly inherited much of her father's courage and leadership in the face of this terrible tragedy. In our darkest hour, Boris Nemtsov was our brightest light. Now he is gone, and we must carry on his work by keeping the torch of freedom ablaze. Each of us must contribute our voices, our actions, our truths, and our light until the dark forces of dictatorship no longer have shadows in which to hide. And now, join me in watching the video tribute to Boris Nemtsov. And now let's offer a very warm welcome to Zhana Nemtsova, who is here to receive a Freedom Award on behalf of her father.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this evening. And first of all, I would like to thank Gary Kasparov for his speech in memory of my father. And on behalf of my family and many Russians who took part in the March of Grief in Moscow on the 1st of March and in other cities and outside Russia, I would like to thank you for the award. My father's lifetime achievement was his fight for freedom, political, economical, and creative. It was his top priority, and he remained true to his principles, no matter what posts he occupied, how hard it was, and what sacrifices it required. And his bravery and devotion led to the tragedy. Those who think that my father's killing could stop the opposition activities in Russia, aiming at building a prosperous and free state, are wrong. And today, I would like to make a formal announcement that I, together with my father's supporters and friends, have decided to set up a Nemtsov's Foundation for Free Russia. And it was my father's dream. Its mission is to continue all those activities to which my father devoted his life, and I will make every effort that the opposition accomplish the important goals that my father set. Today is a holiday in Russia, the Independence Day, and President Putin awarded Russian cultural figures, and he said that those who would try to decode Russia would fail because the patriotic spirit is so firm and strong in my country. But in his opinion, patriotism means support and love for Putin and his actions that lead to poverty, isolation, and the atmosphere of hatred and insecurity. Those who struggle against this regime today are real patriots. They're extremely brave, like my father was. And Ilya Yashin, my father's long-time supporter and a close friend, is one of those people, and I'm happy that he is here today, Ilya. He presented my father's report, and he put all his efforts to finish the report on the war in Ukraine. And I am absolutely sure that Russia will one day become a free and prosperous country without Putin. And if it means decoding, then we are on the right path. Thank you.
Zhana, two things we saw. In the film, we saw optimism and joy of your father, and that's what changes things. Thank you for announcing this foundation here. This is not a time to weep, although I think a lot of the people in the audience are, including myself. It's a time to announce solidarity behind these kinds of movements. With that in mind, I want to invite all of tonight's awardees and speakers for our usual family gathering on stage. So you please come up and join me, along with the previous honorees who are here. This family photo is part of our annual tradition. While everyone gathers, and please come up as soon as you can, we are going to invite you out. Actually, the mayor is inviting us all out for a fantastic opera performance where you can continue to talk to each other and enjoy this performance out in the back terrace and through the same way that you came up. I also, while people are gathering, I want to thank the Atlantic Council team on site tonight. Fran Burwell, Damon Wilson, Michal Kabosko, thank you so much for opening and leading our office in Warsaw. Julie Varghese, Iveta Kruma, Max Chuperski, Sarah Bedenbaugh. Paul Poliga was responsible for the 2 films you saw today, so please give him a round of applause. Vicente Garcia, Megan Poole, Nicole Hobbs, Beth Nervig, Joanna Nalavajek, Randy Bell, and Brady Sujan, thank you so much for being here. I want you to know they've done terrific work here, but every time we bring a team here, they learn from all of you, and they grow through all of you, so thank you so much. Please, a round of applause. Thank you very much. We hope to see you all again next year. Thank you so much.